I just got out, finished a triple feature of Joker 2, Venom 3, and my second watch of Deadpool and Wolverine. First one, I give my thoughts on Joker 2. So a couple days ago, I rewatched the first Joker because I wanted to make sure that I was winning fresh. Just to start out, I want to say right off the top of the bat, Joker 2 was an absolutely amazing film. It was a masterpiece. I struggle there's nothing. I don't think there's anything that you can say that could be a spoiler for this film because it's so well made. No plot point. Knowing a certain plot point here or there is not going to change the quality of the film. It is such a well-made movie. When I first heard this was going to be a musical, I was worried. I was worried that either it would be too overproduced, there would be too many, dance and singing numbers that it would detract from the story, or it would be a half-baked musical with just people singing in bad tune or whatever. But it turns out neither of those are the case. In the first Joker, when Arthur Fleck went into his fantasy world, it was a very specific style. It was comedy based. It was a show. It was the Murray show. In this film, it's music, and the music represents this relationship that he forms. I want to deal with a couple of the complaints that people had. A lot of people have said that this was that this film was on the fans of the first film. Number one. And number two, that people complaining that this was not the Joker from the comic books. So to address the second complaint first, this was not the Joker of the comic books. Well, the first movie was not the Joker from the comic books. That was obvious from the beginning. So to say that the Joker in this movie is not the Joker from the comics, more of the same, right? But the reality is that the Joker in this film was actually much closer to the Joker in the comic books. He had more charisma. He was more confident, more charisma, and had represented more of the chaotic energy, or as an agent of chaos, a directed agent of chaos, which is not something that he was in the first film. The Joker is a symbol for the Joker. He inspired a whole bunch of people. Now, the other thing that I really can't understand is people who say that this was on the fans, because people who were inspired by the first movie. Look, if the Joker was a role model for you, I would say that you have a lot bigger problems than a Hollywood director making fun of you. You're a lot more in the head. You have a lot more issues you need to deal with than worrying about whether some Hollywood writer or director doesn't like you. Going back to the first film, there were a lot of people, and this was a message that was spread by both sides, sort of. That was kind of perpetuated. Was that somehow the Joker represented angry right-wing men, when in reality, if you paid attention, it was much closer to representing actually far left violence. In fact, in one spot, a person was holding a sign in the first Joker that said, one of the fans, one of the activists, was holding a sign that said "resist," which is a direct quote, a slogan of the Never Trumper movement. Another person was holding signs that said, was it "Kill the Rich"? Again, just a play off of another far left ideology. It was about, the activism in the first movie was about class warfare. It was about the government letting Arthur Fleck down because his free healthcare, his free meds, his free psychological evaluations went away. One could have argued that in the first Joker, it was an argument for in favor of a welfare state, if you wanted to go to that extent. In this film, Arthur Fleck takes responsibility for his actions. I don't see how that could be. It's just, it boggles the mind. If the Joker is somehow supposed to represent a role model, then I'm sorry, but you up. And there's a couple of other things in this film. So, one of the things that a lot of reviewers have mentioned is the alleged, which is interesting to me because if you actually watch the movie, no such scene actually exists. The film is very clearly filmed in such a way, the scene is very clearly filmed in such a way that whatever happens is completely up to the imagination of the viewer. If the viewer decides that there was a sexual assault, then it was completely on the viewer. At the same time, I think there's a reference that I think went over everyone's head, or at least everyone that I heard, in which after Arthur Fleck first meets Harley Quinn, and he leaves, the officer says, well, who knew that all it took was an old fashioned for you to get, happy again or whatever, implying that when he left him alone, he got a hand job. So that part nobody mentioned. But everything else is projection. It's completely made up. It's part of the imagination, which is part of the film. Whenever there's a musical number, there's clearly it's existing within Arthur's head. And there's a shared delusion. Clearly, at the very end when Arthur Fleck, I don't know if I want to ruin that, but he takes responsibility for his actions. He at the very end, he decides that he's not the character that everybody wants him to be. The character in the film is not the character that everybody wants him to be, that the wackos and the crazy people want him to be. I thought it was amazing. I thought the musical numbers were well done. The musical numbers go back and forth between highly produced musical numbers from classic style musical numbers to just mumbling song out of tune, but it's such a perfect balance. It does a perfect balance. This movie was an absolute